And hello, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Pollock here with Open Spaces Women. If you're here live, let me know who you are and where you're from. And if you're watching a replay, just put hashtag replay in comments so I know you are here. Today, we are going to cover a very interesting topic that a lot of you have reached out about, which is, should I invest now or wait? Have you wondered that? Let me know in comments if you've wondered about that. Should I invest now or should I wait? That is the question. If you can hear me and see me, guys, by the way, just drop yes somewhere in comments so I know that everybody can see me and hear me, please. So the topic we're addressing is, should I invest now or wait for later? Um, yes, tracking money. Thank you for confirming. So, some of the questions that I'm going to cover today are things like, how is this market different than the 2008 housing bubble? If you were an investor at that time, or if you owned a home at that time, you feel the pain soon as we start talking about it, right? I owned a home at that time, so I know how it feels. How is this market different than the 2008 housing bubble? We're going to talk about, what if the market crashes? Like, should I invest in real estate now? What if the market crashes? Thank you for confirming on Facebook that you can hear me and see me. Um, do I need to do BRRRR differently because of the way the market is? That's another question we're going to cover. Um, are we as in at Open Spaces, our Palak and Nidhi, are we investing right now or are we waiting? I'm going to talk about that, what we're doing. Um, can we still make money as the interest rates continue to rise? That's another thing we're going to talk about. As the interest rates are rising, can we still continue to make money as investors? And then any other questions you might have, I'm going to cover those things as well. All right, so let's get started. Grab a cup of coffee, get a stretch. I'm only going to be, this is like, we're going to be here 15 minutes tops, maybe 20. I always say that, and then I always go over a few minutes because I get caught up in my conversations with you guys. So I'm going to try and keep it 15 to 20 minutes. Uh, but yeah, get a stretch, grab a cup of coffee. I know all of us have other obligations, but just take this time for yourself. I have to tell you before I get started, um, I don't know if some of you are also feeling the pain of the lack of childcare as summer approaches. So my son is in pre-K and he only has 2 hours of school this week. So yesterday we had a lot of fun. Like after he came home, him and I just spent the whole day together. We went to my daughter had she's in first grade, so they had a field day at school, and so I took him with me, and it was really fun. We hung out there, and then I took him to. We had to pick lightings because we're very systems and processes oriented in what we do, and the light that we use typically is there's like a lot of supply chain issues. So I was like, all right, I got to pick something else that we can constantly use again and again, right? So I took him with me, and Nidhi and I and my son, we all went to a lighting showroom at Home Depot, and we are like, which is going to be the next one? We could have done it online, but he was home, and it was a nice way to involve him and take him along. So we did that. So yeah, I spent the whole day with him. Whenever my kids are home, it's always a mix of something fun and then work all at the same time, because when you work for yourself, it kind of all blends in, especially as an investor. It's kind of all just blending in. So it's really fun though. We hung out all day together, and it's probably going to be the same today. He's home. I can hear him upstairs. He's home. He's with Nidhi. Nidhi is giving him lunch, and then after this live, I'm going to swap with him, and then me and my son are going to do something fun together. Um, and can I just say, like, before I get into it, can I just say, I remember every time we lacked childcare, we would be so stressed out. Like, I still get triggered thinking about the stress whenever there was no childcare and I had my 9 to 5 job. And Nita and I used to be like, who's going to take one for the team today? Like, who's going to be the one who's going to stay home and like work, around the kids because the nanny didn't show up or whatever. When our kids were really little, we had a nanny, and I remember those days. So I feel your pain. We're trying to have fun with it now because we have the flexibility. Uh, Reed Slattery is saying that she is watching our live. In the profile picture, it's a couple. So they're saying that they're watching our the IG live from 30,000 feet in the air from an airplane. So that's awesome. And Cyber Investor Florida, welcome. And yeah, let me know if you're here. All right, so I'm gonna get started. I can talk about my kids all day. You guys know that already, but I'm gonna get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is how is this market different than the 2008 housing bubble? And um, if you don't know this already, there were these loans that were being given out right before the crash, that bubble that we're talking about. Right before that, these loans that were being given out, known as ninja loans. And I think it's a really cool term. These loans are basically, ninja is kind of sort of an acronym, not fully, but it's kind of an acronym. No income, no job, no assets loans. Basically, loans were being given out without verification of income, of job, of assets. And banks are way more stringent now. It's much harder to get loans, which is good for consumers, right? Because we only want to have these experts approve loans when we can afford them. And so those loans are no longer active, right? Those loans are no longer a thing. So that's the biggest difference between the housing bubble versus now. It's these ninja loans that no longer are a norm, and banks are very, very stringent today. Also, the market conditions are very different. They're just so different than what they were before. The the inventory is super low. There are more buyers looking for homes than there are homes available for them to buy, right? The inventory is super low. And if you've noticed, even though the interest rates are rising, properties are still flying off the shelf, right? So even though the interest rates are rising, people are still jumping um, on the deals when they find them, and that tells us um, that it's because it's low inventory that we're seeing these prices that are going up. So the conditions are very different than they were in 2008. um, Now the question still remains, none of us have a crystal ball, right? None of us have a crystal ball. So the question is, um, should I invest in real estate now? What if the market crashes? Have you wondered about this? Can you just let me know? Just drop any emoji in comments so I know if you've also been wondering about this. Like, what if I invest in real estate now and then the market crashes, right? Um, so one of the things that um, I learned early on, and that something that I also want you to consider, um, and I've talked to since then, I've talked to a lot of investors who've been in business for over 20, 30 years because I want to know what keeps them in business for a long period of time. And especially, as I mean, we're in our 40s, we're in our early 40s, but 40s regardless. Um, we have small children. We want to make sure we're investing conservatively. We want to make sure that we can provide for our children, even when things go up or down, even during adversities. And I'm an engineer, and Nidhi was in finance. We're like inherently very conservative. So we want to make sure that our investment strategy is something that can withstand the test of time, that can withstand any impending crash, if there is something like that, right? None of the data points to it, but none of us have a crystal ball. So I've talked to a lot of investors who have been in business for a long time, and time again, the answer that I get from them is the investors that lose their shirts when it comes to market cycles changing are the ones that are trying to make a quick buck. They are the ones that are trying to invest in real estate from a transactional perspective. They are the ones that are peddling real estate. And there is a big difference between real estate investing for the long term, right, versus investing for short term. So, long term buy and hold investing, it has always stood the test of time. That is how wealth is made. So it doesn't matter what happens to the market cycle, but you have to be very, very sure about knowing your investment strategy, understanding your numbers, and doing deal analysis in an appropriate way so that you're investing in properties that are positive cash flow. So I did a live last week in which I talked about how we're tweaking the BRRRR strategy based on how the market's moving. And so go back and listen to it if you're interested in all the details. But that's the big thing is you want to make sure that you're investing for positive cash flow. This is no time to buy properties that are negative cash flow in which you have to add money every month. This is no time to do that. All right. Um, so the next piece is, do I need to do BRRRR differently in the current market? So we covered already, like we don't, this is not the time you want to go out and do $1 million flip. Like this is not the time to do that. But in terms of the BRRRR strategy, you still have different things that you need to understand if you're going to invest in the BRRRR strategy that's super profitable, highly lucrative. Most investors that we work with, so our members, most investors make 30 to 40K in equity on their very first deal, regardless of the market cycle, right? So that's a given. This is a highly lucrative strategy, but you need to understand how to execute it. So number one, you want to make sure that you're calculating your ARVs correctly, your after repair values. You need to understand how to calculate them, how your appraiser is going to look at things, and make sure you calculate them appropriately. Make sure you understand how to do rental comps. Make sure you understand how to stay within the construction budget, right? Make sure you understand what neighborhood it is where the strategy that you're after in the way that you want to execute it works. And this is really, really important. You want to make sure that you're investing in the right neighborhood. And one of the biggest things that we stress on, even in our program, for our private uh, members, is that you have to make sure you understand deal analysis and finance. Those are the two things that you really have to understand how to do well. So that's something we focus on a lot. You have to understand how all of the assumptions that you're making in your deal analysis, you need to know what the range is for that, right? So um, the next piece is, are we investing right now or are we waiting? And so if you see me looking down, I just have my notes here. We sent an email out and I listed all the things I was going to cover. So I'm just making sure I cover everything. So the next question is, what are we doing? Myself and Nidhi with open spaces. So if you don't know what we do, we implement the BRRRR strategy, but it's very different than what everybody else does because we came from corporate. We have 30, 35 years of combined experience in systems, in processes, in finance and strategy. And we worked directly with CEOs of companies. So what we do is we take the BRRRR strategy, but then we run it like a CEO. We don't run it like mom and pop investors. And that's why we've been able to scale to a $10 million portfolio approaching 100 rentals within less than 5 years. That is why we've been able to do it, because we run it like a business. We have no partners. We keep all of the equity, all of the cash flow, we keep all of it ourselves. We work less than an hour a day, and the only way we are able to do it is because we combine our experiences in systems, processes, strategy, and finance into real estate investing, and we execute this strategy unlike any other investors out there. And that's what we teach. So just so you know, that's what we do. Within 5 years of being myself being a full-time investor, I was a full-time investor for 3 years, and then Nidhi was able to quit his job. So for the past 2 years, actually, we've both been full-time investors in real estate. And when I say full-time, we don't work full-time. We work about an hour a day. Anything else we do is all because we want to grow ourselves, and that's why we continue learning and continue growing, working on our own personal growth. All right, so what are we doing? So what we're doing is, currently, we have a 15 unit project that we're renovating, and we're gonna move it over to Section 8 tenants. That's one thing we're doing. It has 3 commercial units and 12 residential units. So that's a project we're working on. We're also in the process of refinancing. I think it's 10 or 11 units that we're refinancing. It's like a few single families, a couple duplexes, all bunched in together. So we're refinancing that. So that's another thing we're working on. And then we have a quadplex that we're renovating. So we have a whole bunch of projects going on right now. And once, at least one of them is stabilized, we'll start acquiring again. Within like a month or so, we'll start the acquisition process again. We always acquire in cycles. So we're going to start the acquisition process again. And I talk a lot about how we acquire in cycles in our program. It just allows us to focus our energies on specific things. So every few months, we'll redo the cycle again and again. So yes, so the short answer is yes, we are currently actively investing. I am in the trenches with you guys. Like, we don't just spew out information that we regurgitate from somebody else. This is what we're doing. We're gonna be very upfront about everything with you guys. We've always been super upfront because I think it's so necessary for investors to share these things with each other. We are active investors. We are investing right now. We think this is an amazing time to invest. And yeah, we're going to continue on. Can we still make money as interest rates continue to rise? So this is something that somebody was asking earlier, and I wanted to include that question here. Yes, we can still make money as interest rates continue to rise. I'm going to tell you guys, I mean, we, I think 3 years ago, the properties that I was refinancing, I have properties that are on a 7% interest right now. That this is commercial. This is not conventional lending. This is commercial lending, and that's what we do. That's what we teach, because we are a business. Conventional lending is fine. It's for homeowners. It's okay when you first get started, but if you want to scale, you really need to understand commercial lending. So I have loans at like 7% interest rate already from like 3-4 years ago, and and that's where the interest rate is right now for commercial loans. So for me, like, this doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, the interest rates are skies falling level. They're not, because we've seen them there already very recently. We just experienced like an amazing dip in interest rates for a couple years, and we enjoyed them, and that's great. And I've got a whole bunch of commercial loans, on majority of my portfolio at 30-year fixed at low interest rates, which is awesome, and we've enjoyed that. But that's not the norm. It's okay for them to rise. It's okay, like, as long as the numbers are working and we're making money, and everything's positive cash flow after you take out all the expenses. And by all the expenses, I don't just mean principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I mean principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and vacancy, and capex and opex. And we talk about this a lot in our program. So you want to make sure all the expenses are taken out, and your property does a negative cash flow after that. So as the interest rates continue to rise, you need to make sure that your numbers still work. your assumptions are accurate, and yes, you can still continue making money. People are making money. And I've talked about and you'll probably hear, if you follow us on social media, you'll probably hear about them. Five people recently crossed their $1 million portfolio within a year of working with us. So this is possible for new investors. Please don't let anybody tell you that this is not possible. This is like, people are doing it on the side. This is not even their full time. None of them are full time real estate investors. They will be full time real estate investors now that they're building up their cash flow and equity. But this is totally doable. Um, One thing I want to cover before we end this live is inflation. And something that I want to mention to you guys is, as somebody who has always been very conservative with money, like me, um, you know, something that we don't think about is how real estate is our best hedge against inflation, and I'm going to explain to you how. So right now the inflation is 8%, right? Inflation is 8% right now, which is insane. It's ridiculous. So what that means is, say you have, just to have a round number, if you have 100 grand sitting in your bank account, right? If you have $100,000 in your bank account, that money just sitting there is losing value by 8%. Every year it's going to lose 8% of its value, right? So that's how much everything costs 8% more. So if you have the same amount of money, it's almost like you have 8% less of that money because everything costs 8% more. So what is the best way to make sure that you're fighting inflation as a common person? Like, none of us were born with silver spoons. So what do we do? The best way to fight this inflation and the best way to tackle it is by investing in real estate. Because when you invest in real estate, when you invest that money in real estate, what you're doing is, I see Nidhi just joined the IG live, so I just paused for a second. But yeah, but basically what you're doing is, when you take that money and you invest it in real estate, now, along with the inflation, right, along with everything else going up 8%, your property values are going to go up 8%. Your rent is going to go up 8%. So as a property owner, you're benefiting from inflation. And that's why investing in real estate, this is the best hedge against inflation. Does that make sense? And if you can just drop any questions you have um, while I'm covering this, and if let me know if that makes sense. If you have any follow-up questions, that would be great. So basically, that's why it is so important for people like you and me to continue investing in real estate, because otherwise our money is losing value sitting in the bank account. So you want to make sure you invest that money so that you are growing as inflation's going up, right? So keep that in mind. I believe I covered everything. And if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. And while you're doing that, I want to mention to you, we have a few more spots left this month, in the month of May, for our portfolio program. It's a 3-month program. It is an immersive experience into the BRRRR strategy. We only take on a handful of people at a time because we want to make sure we get to know them. And every week, you work directly with me, you work directly with Nidhi, you work directly with each other. It's a very, very generous community full of intelligent, ambitious people. So if that's you, if that sounds like you, if you're serious about building the business of real estate investing, of borrowing, just like I explained, the way we do it, which is we do the BRRRR strategy, but we execute it like a business and not like mom and pop investors. So we're going to teach you how to build a business from scratch, and not just like go buy a property. You're going to build a business from scratch. You're going to build a team. So it's very sustainable to do this on the side while keeping your job until you're ready to make work optional. All you have to do is either DM me on Instagram, or just comment right below where you're watching this live, and somebody from my team will reach out to you. You can also go to openspaceswomen.com/book a call. And I want to tell you, we're very different than everybody else out there. We're completely different. The kind of people that come into our program are different. They're educated people who have a little bit of money to invest and a lot of ambition. And you're coming in to build it like a business. That's what it's all about. So come join us. The It's an amazing community. I feel privileged every day to have their trust. um, but yeah, so that's our program. Whenever you're ready, you know where to find us. But we do have a few spots left in May. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to take off. I'm going to scroll up on Instagram to see if I missed anything before I say goodbye. If you don't mind, before you leave, you guys, if you can drop in comments any ideas for future, for how you wanna, what all things you would like us to cover in these lives. I'd love to know. And then if you're not on our email list, just go anywhere on openspaceswomen.com and subscribe, so that you can receive emails on when the future lives are happening. I don't see any questions. Sudha is saying something. There is so much cost involved when we buy, then rent. And I'm not sure what that means. So, what I'm going to do is let let her come back and explain it, and I'll cover it next time if it's a topic that we can tackle in a live. um, One of the questions on Instagram is, oh, these are topics. Thank you. Okay, so a couple of topics here, some great ideas here. Progressing from single to multifamily. Oh, I love that. That's a good topic. Um, Key areas you look at to improve in a BRRRR. Yes, so when you do renovations for BRRRR, they're completely different than renovating a property for a flip. It's not the same thing at all. So yeah, that's a good topic to cover. Um, what to know when considering starting real estate investing? Oh, this is really good. That's a really, really good question. We should definitely cover that. What to know when considering starting real estate investing? I love it. And what's the best way to do your first deal ever? Amazing. Thank you so much, you guys. We're planning out, our next month is planned out, but we're planning the month after. So I'm gonna definitely take all of these into account. Um, Different financing options and the pros and cons of that. This is really, really good. We do a lot of work on this in the program, but we can do like a quick synopsis in one of the lives. Great, great question. Um, Curious how you handle buying in a local market where the prices are so high. Single family home under 1,000 square feet, needing major renovation, going for almost 400K. Yes, this is good. All right. Thank you so much, you guys. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about all of these. I'll see you next week. Look out for either a post wherever you're watching this, or look out for an email letting you know that we have an upcoming live. All right. Thanks, you guys. Have a good day.